Aaron Torres joining us from the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. Torres on Arkansas Twitter, of course, as well. Host on Fox Sports Radio and a good friend of the program as we dig into college basketball this weekend and a lot of games in the SEC tomorrow. AT, what's going on today?
Oh, man, not much. It was a fun week. You know, National Signing Day, I know Hogs fans, at least I suspect we're happy. One of the top classes they've had in a very long time. I thought the A&M stuff was fascinating. I thought the Dion stuff was fascinating. And, of course, as you said, Phil, a couple days off for basketball. We all understand why, finals, things of that nature. But we got a loaded slate this weekend. And then, really, it's on to bowl games and it's on to really, regular season conference games. I mean, that stuff is all coming here in the next few days. Finally, exactly. So I want to touch. We haven't had a chance. By the way, Drew's out today. Drew opted out of work today. Oh,
it's just you and me.
He opted out. Okay,
he did.
Okay,
we appreciate you not.
Like Kenneth Walker. Okay, I got you.
That's right, like Kenny.
Like
Pickett.
Treylon Burks, basically.
Well, Kenneth Walker's from Memphis, just like our friend Drew is. So let's start with the big win from Memphis over Alabama recently. I mean, we kind of looked for a while there like things might be spiraling out of control for the Tigers, but wow, I mean, come up with a humongous victory over a team that's played a really tough schedule in Alabama. But what does that mean for Memphis this weekend against Tennessee, which, by the way, that's why Drew's not here. He's going to be at that game in Nashville.
Oh, I thought that the hangover was still going strong 3 days after the Alabama game. Okay. It makes a little more sense now. No, listen, Phil, I would say it makes things more interesting at Memphis. And what's interesting about Memphis, okay, and this is kind of a bigger picture college basketball thing, and I talked about it on my podcast Wednesday. If people care, they can go back and listen. College basketball is this tricky thing because your best players are generally not on campus for very long, okay? And so I bring it up because Penny Hardaway now is in a conundrum that is not all that different than John Calipari, Coach K, guys like that find themselves in every year, and that is that the other night, they have a couple of really highly touted freshmen. One of them is Amani Bates, 17 years old, and we wish him nothing but the best. I don't like to rip 17-year-olds, but the team was very clearly better with the veterans on the court, the fourth, fifth-year college players, the guys that win you games in college basketball. And so, to me, it was an interesting result. I don't know if it really means anything, though, if Penny Hardaway fundamentally is not willing to kind of reevaluate how he puts his teams together and his teams on the floor. And it's not a knock on the kid, but this is something, like I said, all the great coaches deal with. And everyone deals with it a little different. You can criticize John Calipari a lot, but for the most part, he gets the best players, he gets them to the NBA, and he finds a way to win in the process. Whereas you have other coaches, Bill Self is noted for this, Jay Wright is noted for this. They don't play the young guys. And I don't care if it's, November 11th against Eastern Washington. I'm trying to win, and if my vets give me a best chance to win, I'm going to do that. And so the hole that Memphis has dug themselves in, it's a great win. It's a great win, but it doesn't mean much if you can't continue to capitalize on it starting this weekend against Tennessee and then going forward into conference play. So fascinating deal over there. I don't know if everything's been solved or not. It's a great one-off win. Now I'm curious to see if they can keep the momentum going into tomorrow against Rick Barnes and the Vols.
Let me extend this talk a little bit about Kentucky on the other end of things because, I went back and looked at the strength of schedule for every team in the SEC. According to, I think this was Warren Nolan, I think it was, Kentucky has the 8th easiest schedule in the country. The 8th easiest schedule up to right now. Now, I know they do have Louisville coming up soon. They get North Carolina today, so maybe that changes in the next week or so. But I mean, they've lost to the only two good teams they played, Duke and Notre Dame, and they can't shoot. Is Kentucky in trouble?
Well, it was funny when you said I looked at strength of schedule. I was going to say you probably had to do a control search pretty far down that list. It probably wasn't very easy to find. All the way down the list. Yeah. No, I mean, listen, and sometimes fans are like completely out of control and completely irrational. I thought Kentucky fans were completely justified in being frustrated last week. Is that, Calipari for years, he's kind of had this scheduling model. I think fans are starting to get frustrated with it. I don't know if you guys saw the story, but they're hitting like historic lows for Rupp Arena right now because they play that big opener on a neutral court, and then they play later in the year a couple big neutral court games. And then until you get to SEC play, they don't really play anybody. And so the fans were getting frustrated. You go to Notre Dame. Notre Dame is not good. 3-4, had just lost to Boston College. and Notre Dame spanks you. And Notre Dame spanks you, and they don't spank you. I take that back. They win by 4. But I watched that game, Phil, and my biggest takeaway, it wasn't some catastrophic the season is over. But Kentucky playing a not very athletic, not very good Notre Dame team, they looked a step slow. And I think it's a direct reflection of the fact that they haven't played anybody this year. And so, I get why you want to play some bad teams in the out-of-conference, but this is also Kentucky. You can get a Big East team, an A-10 team, a decent teams to come to Rupp Arena to get you ready for what's coming. And so, to me, I don't want to call tomorrow, next week, this game against North Carolina that's rescheduled from Ohio State must win, but you fall to whatever it be, 7-3 coming out of this game if you lose this game. And one, you have no momentum going into SEC play. You have no resume at all to speak of. And it's just another week of, just frustration. And I've always said, Kentucky is only, I believe, college basketball program that is covered like a college football program, where you guys know what it's like when you lose on a Saturday in college football. You're taking calls for 5 straight days about how do we get this right. That's how Kentucky basketball is treated. And, I don't want to do the whole Calipari. Like, there's no hot seat. There's no that. But, it's kind of an inflection point. Like, at some point, it reminds me of what we see in college football again. What we saw with Jim Harbaugh last year, what we saw with Scott Frost. Coach O, I think, is probably a great example. At some point, you keep changing the coaches, you keep changing the recruiting philosophy, you keep changing. At some point, the only constant is you. And so I'm by no means saying tomorrow is must win, but you got to get some positive momentum, man. And you're right, Phil. They haven't played anybody. The fans are frustrated with the schedule. They're frustrated with the on-the-court product. And they're going to be really frustrated coming out of tomorrow if they don't beat North Carolina, or at least play much better than they did against Notre Dame.
Well, you won't have a chance to watch Arkansas on television tomorrow against Hofstra because it's a radio-only game in Little Rock at Simmons Bank Arena. So, and I wonder if you obviously could have watched the Oklahoma game, and they just didn't have that last run in them and just couldn't stop Oklahoma from getting wide-open looks around the three-point line. And I kind of wonder if you feel like Arkansas's performance and petering out in the second half against Oklahoma might have been a product of what you just said about Kentucky, that they really haven't played many good teams. Cincinnati's lost a couple of games, including one to Monmouth since Arkansas played them. I'm not sure if Kansas State was all that good. So, I know that they scheduled in a certain way because the, must views that the teams they're playing might end up winning their league, but it still doesn't bring your strength of schedule up. And this may end up hurting you in the end, like if you finish, a game under, 2 games under in the SEC. But I just wonder, do you think that was an effect? The game of OU was from the playing. It wasn't a ton of cupcakes, but just not playing a great schedule.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, the week before Arkansas had played Oklahoma, Oklahoma had played Florida, which, I've been critical of Mike White, but, they're a real team. They've made NCAA tournaments, and they played Butler, and they lost to Butler. But sometimes losses make you stronger. And so, it was kind of the same thing where, Oklahoma kind of had more blows to give. They took a couple blows and then they fought back in a way that Arkansas didn't. And listen, I don't think it's over all that stuff. And I thought Ty brought up a great point. Last winter at this time, Arkansas took some losses that kind of made you feel like things were trending in the wrong direction. And then mid-January, late January, early February, they obviously hit their stride and won 1 million games in a row in SEC play. And so, I do think that was absolutely a byproduct. I just think, the Kentucky game was more, I was just watching it. I just felt like Kentucky was a step slow. Arkansas, I just felt like they faced a more desperate team coming off a loss to Butler, had to have that win, and they got the win. And by the way, let me say this, Phil. I don't think you were in Tulsa. That crowd looked awesome, by the way. And I tweeted this during the game, is we play a lot of lousy neutral court games in college basketball just for the sake of it. I have no problem with great neutral site games where both fan bases can have access to it. I was at Gonzaga Duke the other day, and they made it an event and had 1 million Duke fans, 1 million Gonzaga fans. But that Arkansas Oklahoma crowd looked awesome, and I'm not worried about Arkansas, the basketball team, but the crowd itself looked great, and I was just really, really. It was a fun game to watch, but obviously frustrating ending for Arkansas.
Yeah, it definitely gives you that feel of a tournament game, and you got the 2 fan bases there. By the way, Arkansas ranks, and this was in today's rankings, 274th out of 358 in strength of schedule. And I don't know if it's going to go much higher until you get into the SEC. Hey, Aaron, last thing I want to hit on with you. This is fascinating. I read a piece in The Athletic today about Oscar Shibwe. He's the starting center for Kentucky and is really playing incredibly well. Transferred out of West Virginia. I don't know if you saw what Shibwe said that Bob Huggins told him he would do if he decides to transfer. This is a quote from the article. Shibwe says, Coach told me he was going to ruin my life if I did that. He was going to say all these things to NBA GM so nobody would ever want me. Said a lot of negative things about me to Coach Calipari, including that he got caught smoking weed. And Huggins is vehemently denying this in the story. I mean, this is incredible stuff here.
You know, it's crazy. I had not seen that, Phil. And I'm, this is, and let me just go broader here, 30,000 for view. This is the side effect of the one-time transfer rule. And, Dabo talked a lot about this the other day, and Dabo got crushed on social media because that's, everyone on social media had the same opinion. Like, what Dabo said is how most coaches really do feel about this stuff. It's how most coaches feel about this stuff. Most of them won't say it. I think at this point they've all kind of moved on and accepted this is the new world we live in, and I think at some point if Dabo doesn't, he's going to fall behind, and I wonder about the staying power of Clemson as a nationally elite program when they're losing 5, 6, 7, 8 guys a year to the transfer portal and they're not replacing them with transfers. And so, what Dabo said, while I think he needs to move on, is how people feel. And this is a metaphor for that, right? And I'm not accusing Kentucky of tampering. I'm not accusing, certainly not accusing Oscar Shibwe of lying. But this, imagine, Phil, you follow this stuff, man. Imagine being a coach. You recruit a kid since 8th, 9th grade. You're flying all across the country to watch his games. And then a semester in, a year in, he decides, you know what, I'm leaving. Or, by the way, somebody from another school is reaching out to him and saying, hey, come on, man, Coach, look at how Coach Huggy is using you. We would never use you like that. And then the only goal is to get him to campus. The only goal is to get him there. And so, I think this past week with signing day and with NIL and with the transfer stuff, I saw more people kind of speak out that, like, we need to figure out some sort of guardrails to this stuff because just going on forever the way that it is, I don't know if it's sustainable. And so, first of all, I've never been in favor of the one-time transfer rule. It's great for our business. It creates a ton of content for us in football and basketball. I don't think it's what's best. I've always believed that players should be able to leave if the head coach that recruits them leaves, not the coordinator, not the assistant coach. If the head coach leaves, you're allowed to leave without sitting out. Otherwise, I believe just across the board, let everybody sit out for a year. And so I just bring it up, Phil, because I don't know if where we're at now is sustainable going forward. And while I certainly, if that is true, don't forgive Bob, it's unacceptable from Bob Huggins. It's part of this thing. Like, do I think that Oscar Shibwe, or do I think that he thinks that Oscar Shibwe was probably tampered with, that he's trying to coach his team and he's got other coaches calling Oscar to, hey, you coaches or whatever, and, saying, hey, come here and play for us and do this? Like, I do believe that he felt that way, and he's been very vocal, Bob Huggins, publicly about how disappointing this transfer stuff is. So I know I went in a million different directions there, but, when Dabo Swinney says stuff like what he said, I know everybody on Twitter wants to bash it. That's how everybody in college sports feels, but Dabo is one of the few that has the platform where he's not really going to get in trouble for saying it, or there's going to be no real consequences to it. And so this is the world we live in. This is the world that we've created. I think everybody kind of knows where I stand on most of the big issues. I can keep talking about them if you want, but while that's awful and despicable, if Bob Huggins really said that, I think it's a metaphor for the fact that we have absolute chaos in college sports right now, and nobody seems to want to change it or fix it.
Yeah, there is a little bit, regardless of how you feel about NIL, about transferring, there is a bit of a Wild West feel to it, and then you're going to have to find ways to not reel it in, but not have so much chaos. I think chaos is the right word.
BetOnline has you covered for all the holiday season. More props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all sports action. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus with the promo code BELIEVE to receive your bonus. That's BLEAV to receive your bonus. And it's not just football. BetOnline has pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, even your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all these amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports.